All right, calling EPD committee to order February 1st, 2021 at 6:01 p.m. and everybody's here. First public comment period. Anybody have anything they want to say? Hearing none, we'll come back to it. What do I hear on reading and approval of minutes?
So moved.
Second? Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes are approved as presented. Reports and communications from city officers. Mr. Broad.
Yes, sir, Mr. Matney. You have a copy of our budget in front of you. We are at 54% of an ideal 42 percentile budget. So we've got, we're doing pretty well, I think, within our department. We continue to monitor our budget and do our best to work within the parameters that you guys have given us. So we appreciate that. And then I really quick wanted to read through a couple of items that Mr. Kraline asked about back in August or September when he came on to our committee. Kiara Hyder, who is our cultural center director, so to speak, has done an outstanding job of tracking information for us, numbers, budgeting, and those things. And I thought it would be interesting just for you guys to have a look at a really short synopsis of what has happened and transpired at your center, really over the past 10 years plus. I mean, it's been before our time. Kira and I inherited a wonderful facility that you guys were already actively working. From 2010 to 15, there was a barbecue festival, 2 or 3 or 4 outdoor events. I believe, if I remember, Edwin McCain played outdoors here. That was before my time. Great attendance. Annual Christmas tree lighting, other indoor activities, public art trail before my time, wood carvers, ballroom dancing, guitar studio, civic groups. And then in 16, we added and continued a continuation of the barbecue festival, tree lighting, public art, wood carvers, ballroom dancing, but we don't have that anymore. We had that for several years, guitar and civic groups. And then we added Farmers Market, Beach and Fridays, Greenville Concert Band Series. If you've never been to one of those, I encourage you to come. It's really good. 12 Days of Christmas, which includes a Christmas market. Children and youth theater performances, 4 annually each year. Season reveal of shows. We announce our season, annual theater fundraiser, auditorium renovation, Art Haven School of the Arts was added. If you've not been to one of the classes, and if you look at the artwork in the second conference room, staff did that as a, yes, ma'am, thank you, Ms. Kuzniar, a team building exercise of our department heads. We've had a couple of comedy shows. James Gregory, Henry Cho has been there. Greenville County Marching Band competition. I don't know if you're aware, but we sponsor that with Mauldin High School, and it's at the high school every year, but our cultural center is a partner in that, and it's something we love to do as part of our community connectivity. We have public events at the facility. The Mauldin High School Booster Club meets there from time to time. They've held an oyster roast there. We sponsor Music Day. National Night Out's been there a couple of times over the past few years. Twice yearly, we have an art showcase from the Art Haven and other classes. We have voice and class studios and many other events in and out of the facility. And we're getting ready to expand the lobby and add a plaza outside. And I said earlier, I shared this information because Mr. Kraline asked, how do we gauge the ROI on that facility? What's the metric or the tool that we use? And I said then, if I remember, I don't think we have staff-wise ever really gauged that. But in my head, I've known that here are some of the things that I use personally for us to gauge that. And obviously, I think you guys have to come to what you feel like is the best metric for gauging the return on investment. And there are several ways to look at it. So I started with some of the revenue numbers. And this is just some very specific numbers. It doesn't represent the entirety of the budget because we kind of run 2 different, groups out of there, but it represents some of the old and new programming. For example, in 2019-20, our budget for barbecue, Beach and Fridays, and all those outdoor events was $115,000. We spent $99,000, but our revenue for that year in sponsorships and revenue was $40,000. Theater performances, which was a new program over the last 5 years we've added, our budget was $81,250. We spent $88,005 that year, but our revenue and sponsorship for performances for that year, which also included 2 canceled shows, by the way, we had, Annie was getting ready to get on the stage. We'd spent all the money, but we canceled the show. But even at that, our revenue was $69,540. So that's pretty significant. And I think you could look at those numbers and decide, does that metric work for your return on investment? Marketing, we tell a story when we market, when we do advertising and buy ads for the sports center. And if you look in a book of list experts that we just did, there's a great ad in there for our sports center and our cultural center. So we tell our story using our marketing. Our website's managed out of there. It's a whole a facet of things that we do. Our budget was $150. We spent $161,000. That same year, we also saw 31,000 people come through that facility. That's another metric, I think, by which you measure the return on your investment. So I just would suggest added programming, quality of life for the community are some ways to measure. And then you have a letter in here of support from a development group to a grant program that we're working on. And in that letter, it says the cultural center and of course the sports center as well are some of the many reasons that this developer decided to make an investment in the city, because it saw the investment the city was making in itself through the arts and sports and recreation. I think that's another metric that you measure, the investment that you make, not in just the cultural arts, but in recreation, quality of life, for family. Businesses like to locate where quality of life and activity are available for their employees and citizens. I believe these 2 entities you've invested in over the years, the sports center and the cultural center, afford our residents and regional community members an opportunity to engage and connect. These centers are regular stops on recruitment tours by businesses looking and considering investing in Mauldin. So personally, I say thank you for the work that you've done in those 2 facilities. And it is hugely, vastly important to the ability, I think, for us to recruit companies to our community. So there's a lot of other metrics we can look at and measure, but these are just some that you might gauge as your return on the investment dollars that you spend, not only here, but in our sports center. I think it brings equal opportunity for us too as well. That's my report.
Any questions for Mr. Broad?
Yeah, thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate this.
Thank you, sir.
Put things in perspective for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
And since we don't have any unfinished business, do I have a motion to enter executive session for consideration of contractual matters related to the Parker Group, Project PB, and Project MDC as allowed under Section 30-4-70A2?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are in executive session at 6:10. All right, coming out of executive session at 7:29, who's reporting out?
And
Mr. Crayland.
report out that there was no actions taken, no votes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Crayling. No decisions were made, no votes were taken. We appreciate that. Any public comment?
Mr. Jim Butcher.
But I think he's going to zoom in.
Yep. All right, Mr. Butcher.
Yes.
Good evening, sir.
How are you, sir?
The floor is yours.
I simply wanted to ask the question of whether or not there has been any update on the status of the Bethel Road redirect, and whether or not the residents of the Mauldin Trailer Park, Mobile Home Park, have been contacted, and whether or not they have been informed of the plans for the Habitat for Humanity projects that the mayor was speaking of, that kind of thing.
Mr. Butcher, just so you know, the public comment period is generally just for public comment and not a lot of interaction. But what I can say is that the questions that you have asked would be a primarily DOT matter that we don't have access to those answers.
No, I understand. All right.
I'm sorry, I don't have more for you on that.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Brandon, anybody else? Anybody present have a public comment? All right, committee concerns. Hearing none, what do I hear on adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and we are adjourned. And up next is public safety.
All right, I'll call the second committee meeting, Public Safety Committee meeting for February 1st to order at 7:34. Present is myself, Mr. Kraling, our city administrator, Mr. Madden, and our fire chief, Chief McHone. Joining in remotely, we have committee member Mr. Black, Judge Martin, and Chief Turner. All right, public comment? Okay, no, moving on. Fast and efficient. The next item would be the reading and approval, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm right. I was looking at the wrong thing. Of the minutes from, we didn't have a meeting in January, so from December 14th, 2020. Do I have a motion?
You have a motion as is?
Motion to approve as submitted. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the minutes of our December 14th meeting, say aye. Aye. None opposed, motion carries. That gets us to reports from our city officers. I always jump out of order here, so I'll let Judge Martin.
Thank you. Good evening. How are you all?
Doing great. Hope you are.
I am. I'm a little cold like you are, but other than that, I'm okay. You all have my report in front of you. I am trending about 12% under where I'm supposed to be right now. So our budget's in pretty good shape. And I also wanted to just, I know that I gave Brandon a copy of the order that came down from the Supreme Court about all in-person hearings still being suspended. That has not changed. The moment that I get any additional information, I'll be sure to pass that on.
Perfect. Any questions for Judge Martin?
I have none.
All right. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
We'll go to Chief McHone.
Over our budget, I said we're looking good on our budget. We're 6% under our budget right now.
Right now. Good
Right
job.
now. Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Chief Turner. How are you? Oh, he's on mute. Oh,
Good evening, ma'am.
hold on. I jumped ahead. Chief, I was just giving you a test to tell you to turn on.
I'll go
Hold
back
on.
on mute.
Hold on one second. All right, I'm sorry,
I
Chief.
wish I gave y'all a copy, and I will, Mr. Black, I will leave a copy of this in your box. But it's our training curriculum outline for this next year. This is just for information purposes only right now. So,
Well, thank you, sir.
very welcome.
Yes, I told Chief McCone earlier that I was holding that close to my heart, that I've been waiting on that for a long time. So I'm anxious to be able to sit down and go through that. So thank you so much.
Madam Chairman, while we got the chief up on the table there, how do we stand on staffing in the fire department? Are we down how many, up how many, or where do we stand on staffing?
We're currently down to 2, and they've got 2 interviews this week and doing agility tests. So hopefully that at least one position will be filled here real shortly.
Okay, so there's no danger of us not being able to provide service for the people.
We're good. We're
All right,
better than we've been in a while.
All right, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? We're good?
Good.
All right, now Chief Turner, you can unmute. Hey,
Yes, ma'am.
can't see your
Good
face.
evening.
Perfectly.
Yeah,
You got your mask on?
I do not.
We're
I
ready
had
for
it
your-
on all day though. We're good. Yeah, so
Good.
currently we're tracking at 5% under. So we're doing well there. And I just want to let you know that our vehicles that we ordered back in, I guess it was October, it might have been September. We were able to pick those up and secure those on Friday. And we're going to be working with Unique Public Safety out of Spartanburg to get those upfitted within the next couple weeks. At least to get them over there and get them working on them.
Great, good news.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions for Chief Turner?
I have none.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Madden, do you have anything to add at this time? Okay, thank you. We have no unfinished business, so that would take us to the one item on our agenda tonight, which is the architectural engineering services, page 6 of your small packet, and then in your large photo album are the bids. So I will allow Mr. Madden to explain that process. I believe there were 6 firms that responded to the bids
Yes,
and sent their information in.
that's correct. The city issued a request for qualifications for architectural and engineering firms to manage the design of the new fire station. The city received proposals from 6 firms. The proposals were reviewed by evaluation committee and interviewed. And the evaluation committee recommended Stewart Cooper Newell as the architect for this project.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. And as you can see in your packet, this particular firm that has been recommended through the committee, which I like the way that we go about the selection process. But this particular group, this is what they do. They build fire stations. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chief and Mr. Madden. And they're currently, as you can see, where they were involved in the design and they did the work for the Simpsonville.
They actually
New
done
station.
Simpsonville, and they also done ours, the Station 3.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yep.
I forgot about that. So at this time, I'll take a pleasure of committee on the recommendation. Then we can have discussion. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion for closure of committee on this item.
All right, I have a motion to send to full council the recommendation to award the bid to Stewart Cooper. Is it Newell? Do I have a second?
Second,
Thank you, Mr. Black. Any further discussion on this?
Madam Chairman, under the financial impact, this is to be, if I'm reading this correctly, be discussed and negotiated with the price structure on this service that they provide. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Black. Should council award the contract to a firm, staff will go back and negotiate an agreement that will come back through committee for vetting and approval.
Do you hear that, Mr. Black?
Yeah, I heard that. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to make sure, because I didn't see a financial impact on it other than down at the bottom of the page 6. So we're going to go in there, and if this is awarded by council, we go back and negotiate a cost. Then if the cost doesn't work out, then what do we do? Go back to the second place RFQ, or what do we do then?
That's correct. If we're unable to negotiate a contract, then we'll go to the second firm that was ranked by the committee.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Good question.
One question. Sure we did, but we did follow our standard procedure for reviewing the different qualifications, everything like for the process we have, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
And just, I mean, we all know this, but for clarification and for the record, this is just to award the contract on the architectural part. And then obviously after that will come the construction end of it. So this is just the design concept.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, Madam Chairman, another thing on this, the committee did tell this firm what we had in mind as far as the structure itself, as the number of bays, square footage, and what was to be incorporated into this building. That's correct?
That's correct, Mr. Black. I think in your agenda packet, you provided on the separate was the RFQ that was actually issued. In that RFQ, prior to putting the RFQ together, staff worked with an engineering firm to come up with a draft of a layout for that site. That was discussed in-house with Chief McComb and Building and Development Services Director David Deerhog. We provided feedback, and that was included in the RFQ to give the firms a conceptual rendering to help guide their submittal.
Yeah, I saw the proposed layout of the parking lot and the 3-bay structure, and there was some mention of a substation for the police department also in this, incorporated in this structure. That's correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Any more discussion? Input? You good, Chief? All right, no further discussion. So all those in favor of forwarding into council the recommendation to award the bid to Stewart Cooper Noel, say aye. Aye. None opposed, motion carries. That gets us back to public comment number 2. Miss Joanne smiling in her new coat. That's right. All right, no public comment. That brings us to committee concerns. None this time? All right. Well, I don't have concerns, but I have to pick at somebody, so I'll pick at Chief since he's sitting across the table from me. Become Chief and get you a new fire station.
Timing.
What else you want?
It's time.
And it is very much going to be needed the way our city is growing. So tell your folks, and Chief Turner, tell your folks we appreciate all that they do. We don't say it often enough, but I think it's something that we need to continuously remind our employees of. So thanks to all of y'all for everything that you do. All right, what we got on adjournment?
Did we adjourn?
So moved to have a second?
Jason?
We got it. We stand adjourned. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night. Thank you.
Night, Judge.
You ready?
Yep.
Yep. I'm going to call this the Public Works Committee meeting to work. We have here myself, Ms. King, and Mr. Reynolds, as well as our city administrator. And who else do we have online here? We have Mr. Fleeman. I'm sorry, the name comes before that. We have. Yeah, that's it for the committee, right? Okay. All right. First of all, I guess let's start with. By the way, it's at 7:50 p.m. All right. Public comments. Do you have any public comments at this time? Public comments. We'll move to the next. We have the reading and approval of the minutes from January. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion the minutes be approved from January 4th, 2021.
A second.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I should have said prior to, I was not here for the January meeting, so I'll let you do the second on that. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. With that, any comments?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? No one? Move on. Okay. Report and communications from our officers. Mr. Fleeman.
All right, can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, so for budget, at this point in the year, we should have 43% of our annual budget remaining. I oversee 6 departments. Sewer is at 54%, street is at 57, sanitation's at 50, PW admin's at 48, fleets at 46, and parks is at 50. So we are doing extremely well for the budget for this fiscal year.
All right.
What about all its
Yeah.
capital budget?
We have spent, well, we ordered everything or purchased everything. There's 2 trucks still waiting to come in, the leaf vac and the trash truck. We expect delivery end of this month. So those capital expenditures will roll off in this next month's time.
Good job, Mr. Fleeman. Thank you.
No
Thank you.
problem.
On the other items? road
Yes.
paving update?
Yeah, so I submitted a work order to the Department of Transportation to clean the intersection of Butler Road and Lawrence Road as per the request from Councilman Kushner. They've yet to do it. DOT is not always very responsive. I will follow up again with another service order, and I may just call Joel Smith and see if I can facilitate it. The last is the road paving. Am I taking this, Brendan, or are you?
Yeah, I can.
All right.
So this is an update on our road paving for this year. There were addition of, I think, 7 roads in addition to what we had already listed. And so in your agenda packet, if you go to starting on page 7 and ending on page 8, you'll see the additional roads that were added. So for this upcoming year, we'll pave approximately 12.25 miles of city roads.
This almost takes care of the full year 1 and year 2 list that was provided as well, doesn't it?
It does. So it'll seed fund our transportation program.
Awesome.
Also, there's funding set aside for replacement of extruding curbing. A lot of the city streets don't have curbing, but we do have some that do have curbing. So we're putting a list together and we'll provide that to Co-Transco. So that as they come across those areas of curbing that need to be repaired, they can repair those.
No, with our website, we have all these listed.
No, we'll be adding this entire list to the website so everyone can see exactly which roads will be paved.
When you get ready with that, you let me know. I'd like to start posting that. I think we'd all like to let people know which roads are being done this year so they can see it, see what's going on.
Absolutely.
I think the 12.25, right?
Yeah, 12.24.
That's pretty good. That's substantial. Very good.
When does King Asphalt perceive that they'll start?
Matt, have you received any notification of the timeline?
Yes. We're meeting on Wednesday. All the municipalities that you see listed, that page 7 and page 8 of your agenda for this year's annual paving. We're meeting at County Square, and we're going to go over the raising and lowering of utilities and the expected start date for each section of the paving. And I will relay that message back through the council when we have the hard, fast dates set for the paving schedule.
I think the only other concern I would have is making sure that we are contacting Greenville Water or any other utilities that may be involved on all of these roads and make sure they don't have maintenance within the next short period of time. If they have maintenance coming up.
I sent the list to Greenville Water about a month and a half, 2 months ago, when we finalized it, just so that the engineering department could get on whether or not they need to do any water main relocations.
Thank you, Mr. Fleetman.
We also discussed about signage, saying this from the city of Mauldin, this effort is the city of Mauldin's, this is our project. So people know that it's the city of Mauldin doing this, it's their tax dollars going to work with these roads.
Right.
These roads. Right.
Yeah, that's correct. We can, place signage up, just to kind of indicate this is from the city's transportation program. Just reinforce to the residents that this is your taxpayer dollars in play.
Simple. I think that was mentioned, Parkins Mill, they're doing on the sidewalks. We go by there where they're putting the new sidewalks and they have it. Just, let's take credit where we can for things we're doing. Okay. All right. Is that it?
No, that's
Is
it.
that it?
That concludes the reports.
There's no unfinished business. Let's move on to new business. Playground shelter lighting.
As per request from Mr. Black, Public Works has solicited some bids to provide lighting to the playground at City Center Park or City Center grounds, because it's not a park. The electrician we've been working with provided two options. One was to do the boring and install the two poles to shine on the playground. The other option, the cheaper option, was for Public Works to do the excavation. I have no recommendation. It does get dark there. If we do have special events and kids are on the playground, it is dark. It's certainly a warranted request, but it is an unbudgeted expense.
What kind of time frame, if we were to agree to do this, what are we looking at?
It would take them 3 to 4 days.
Personally, they've been there during the events, Christmas event outside, and it was dark. Kids were out there playing. It probably isn't the safest environment. I mean, good neighborhood and everything, but somebody kid could disappear real easy.
But I think this is just for the playground, this request.
That's what I'm talking. This is just the playground, but there were a lot of kids playing in the playground.
Right.
And so from a safety standpoint, I am in favor of this because, like I said, I hate for something to happen just because we're worried about a couple lights. Just throwing my opinion there, but I do think it's warranted.
Yeah, I just had a quick comment. This is something we've gone back and, well, not back and forth, but first of all, thank you, Mr. Black, for bringing this to committee, requesting that it go on the agenda. We've had a lot of lighting issues just in general around the cultural center and the sports center and trying to keep lights on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of been a pet peeve of mine for a while. I too am in favor of this. It just makes sense to have lighting at the playground, especially since we have so many events there and we'll continue hopefully to add events in the years to come. But my recommendation would be to incorporate this, since we're in the middle of a budget process right now for the upcoming budget. I'm just not a fan of doing something that's not budgeted immediately. And if it's something that with, in my opinion, with COVID and we're not having a lot of we're not having any activities, quite frankly, that this is something that could go through the normal process of our budget and look to do it in the next fiscal year.
Question on the bringing up the electrical issues that we have. Where do we stand on with that? What's the status?
Can I respond? Yes. So historically, the electrical work that's been done on the Cultural City grounds has been direct bury of electrical lines. And it's not a good practice because, when that sheathing on the wire gets rubbed by just rocks in the dirt, that we get shortages. So if you've been out there recently, you'll notice that it's very well lit up. We've been contracting work through Excel to come out and direct bury conduit, pull electrical lines to restore lighting all throughout the city center grounds. We we've actually started working on also adding lights to all the monuments. It's as bright out there as I've ever seen it. So we're going to continue to work on that and correct the issues. I mean, there were some cases where, you know, there just wasn't current. The lines had just deteriorated. So we've been working on it. All the lights currently work, except for 2 poles that were Duke Powers, and we're working with Duke to restore electricity to those to those 2 poles.
Would it be possible to put if we were to go with your suggestion of putting in the budget next year, putting in like a temporary or floodlights off of the bathrooms back there to at least give some additional light back in that area?
Yeah, we certainly could. I mean, our intentions with the 2 poles is actually to pull off the box that's there at the shelter, just because there's enough power there and there's enough slots in the main breaker box. So I mean, if we want to do floodlights, we certainly could. I will point. I agree with budgetary concerns. I would just like to note that the folks at the Cultural Center have plans to do a lot of events in the spring, the Beach and Fridays and other events. So, you know, there is a potential where we will have several events with no lights on the playgrounds.
If it's the pleasure of the committee, what we could do prior to the council meeting is we could get with the financial director, take a look at our existing capital budget. There have been some cost savings in some of the projects that have been completed to this point to see if we could fund this in the current budget.
At the end of the day, it's not a lot of money, but y'all know me, I'm just a stickler for
Point well taken.
budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That
But
was actually
would be great.
my point of view as well. But the other concern I would have is I don't like piecemealing things. So if this is the only playground that needs it, then let's address this one. But if there are other playgrounds that do it, and other places that we need to be looking at to do it all at once, let's look at them all as one item rather than piecemealing. If this is the only place that needs it, I don't know, right? I'm saying assess it.
This has virtually no lighting back there. For the other ones, maybe it's not up to where we want it, but they do have lighting from my experience. Is that correct, Mr. Fleeman?
Yes, I mean, both Sunset and Springfield have lighting on all the playgrounds. So
City Park,
City Park,
because we have a new playground there.
we have the parking lot lights, and then the new lights that we're having installed out there. So yeah, so this is, and we are kind of addressing some of the other lighting issues, to kind of go back to what
I guess one of the things part of my concern too is, do we want kids on the playground when they need lights?
They're gonna go, well, I mean, unless you lock it, because they're gonna jump the fence. I mean, they're kids, right? We could put warning signs and several other things, but at the end of the day, you may not, and not like that. The other concern I have is you have older children, maybe are not doing, just going to hang out. And if the lights are on, less likely to hang out. If they're off, just throwing that out there. That's also, we've had some issues of vandalism and some other things. Having a dark area with the expensive equipment from that.
My thought was tied just as a frequent flyer at Beach and Fridays on. I'm just particularly thinking of that event that's every Friday night for, extended weeks, 10 weeks, whatever the case may be. And it does get dark before the bands finish. So you have all age groups out there. So if, the kids are on the playground, it could potentially be too dark prior to people starting to leave the event.
So I'd say with that in mind, have the finance director do what Mr. Madden suggests, look at this year's budget capital and see if it's there.
And can I add, Mr. Fleeman, thank you for addressing the lights in the issue and updating us on, quote, they're as bright as you've ever seen it, and I'll agree with that. And to your point, I was riding through one night, I mean, this was like a month ago, and there are a couple of lights out, and I'm like, Dad, you know, you get them fixed and then they go out. But within 2 days, they were back on again. So I have never seen that happen. So thank you and your guys for getting down to whatever the problem was out there with those lights. And the same 2 Duke power lights that don't work.
Just
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. We're just trying to do it right.
Yeah, finally, thank you.
So on this, we want them to make a motion on this and move forward to let them see if we can't find it, bring it back again next month.
Yes, sir.
Ryan, Ms. Reynolds, you agree?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
And let's just move on then to the next item. We don't have to do a motion for that. Thank you, so. Sealy Construction Contract.
Yes, this is the, last month, the council awarded the construction contract for the renovations to the public work facility, the Sealy Construction. So we're bringing the contract back for council vetting. The budget that was established for this is, council established was $200,000. With a construction manager at risk, they'll do any type of pre-construction services, any type of engineering that's needed, and they'll come back. If it's over the $200,000, they'll come back with a guaranteed max price amendment to this contract. That will come back before council if it's over the 200,000 amount. You have to get council approval. But this is just the contract for it. To get that process started.
And I believe that we had a request last time, Mr. Reynolds, just to make sure that we'd had some discussion from our folks with Sealy. Did that occur?
Yes, we interviewed Sealy. We've talked to them since interviewing them, and they have the parameters they need to do the work. They understand kind of where we are, the reason for this project, the time frame for this project, and the budget that's been established.
You felt comfortable?
Yes.
What is the time frame that was conveyed to them?
Still possible, but.
Good answer.
We need it done. There's some other projects that hinge on this.
Yes.
Any more discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to forward to council the request to the staff's recommendation for the approval of the contract with Sealy Construction.
Second.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
I think the only other thing I'd ask is this is a 60-page document for a $200,000 job. Will we have legal vet this?
Yeah, legal has vetted.
They've already vetted this. Okay. Okay, that was all I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion? If not, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Move on. Public comment. Any additional public comment? Please.
What about the lighting for the basketball goals out at the senior center?
That's what I was talking about. Assess everything. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
There's a lot of people that go back there at night and there's not a lot of light right there.
Correct. I believe there's more light than it over here, but that is pretty insufficient. I guess we could ask for you all to evaluate that. Acceptable, Freeman?
And also keep in mind that when, well, I guess some, like our fields, the lights are on timers, aren't they? So we don't have to literally flip a switch? Mr. Freeman?
No, they're on timers, and actually some of the folks in the rec department actually can control them from their phones.
Remotely? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Anyone online? All right, with that, any committee concerns?
Thank you, Mr. Craylor. This is, for you, Mr. Fleetman. Are we still, well, I know we are, as far as the brush and limb pickup, and when we have excess, we are dumping it over behind the warehouse over there at Jenkins Street? You like the way I'm talking with my hands? How are we?
That is all correct, yes.
And I just see that pile getting bigger and bigger, and I know we're limited with staff and we're having other unusual situations going on now, but what is the short-term plan of getting that moved? Do we contract that out, or do our guys move it?
Well, we have a contract and they are actively hauling. They're out there almost every day. We just generate so much volume. Public Works is currently in discussion with Republic, who does our waste transport to the landfill. They won't take our brush, but we're negotiating for them to take our leaves. And if we could, get that contract, and I'll bring it through the Public Works Committee when we finalize it, it will significantly reduce our volume. And the reason we put brush over there is we typically take our brush to Henson's in Simpsonville, and they go through periods where their equipment breaks or they have too much volume. So that's just typically our brush's overflow right there. If we can manage the leaves and, Henson stays on top of it, we obviously won't have anything out there.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I know that was a great short-term plan, but it's ended up being a, more long-term. So yeah, it's working for what we needed it to work for, but I'm glad to hear you're looking at alternatives, as we know that cannot be a solution to the problem forever. Thank you.
Would it not be worthwhile for the city to invest in a commercial chipper?
I was thinking that as well. I guess that'd be something we could look at. I know this is out of order, right? But that's something I was actually thinking about myself. That would at least reduce the volume, or or possibly something we might want to come get. It's worth looking at.
And the most could be, either put around trees or given to people or whatever.
Or even for use for our own purposes for the city. Something to think about and maybe look into. Any other committee concerns?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Those in favor? David?
Aye, we're adjourned.
Aye.
All right, I'm gonna call the Building Codes Committee to order. Is 8:14 on February the 1st. Is there any, well, let me start with this. All in attendance are myself, Taft Matney, our city administrator, Brandon Madden, and virtual is Dale Black, and the building services director, David Deerhog. Do we have any public comment? Hearing none, what do I hear on reading and approval of the minutes?
Move for approval.
Do I hear a second? All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. The ayes have it. Reports or communications from city officers. Mr. Deerhawk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did send out a update on our budget, and so we continue to be in good shape with our budget. While the ideal remaining percent is 41, we have 51% remaining in our budget. So that's the only report I have for you tonight, aside from the items listed on the agenda.
All right, thank you. Do you have anything, Mr. Madden?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we don't have any unfinished business, so let's move on to new business, which is the building inspection activity. Mr. Deerhog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I provided for you a report just outlining the increase we're seeing in building inspections as of recently. There's a chart in your packet that shows for the last 2+ years how our building inspections have trended. And for the most part, we've stayed between 200 and 400 inspections a month up until the last couple of months. And this probably comes as no surprise with the level of development that's been approved within the city, but our inspections are significantly increasing over the last couple of months, and we expect that trend to continue. You know, from day to day, the amount of inspections fluctuates. There may be some days where it's very low, but then there's some days where it's very high. And so we've been talking about strategies in our department to just help us to be prepared for the increased amount of inspections we're receiving, especially for those days when it's compared to history and usually high, but is starting to kind of become more normal. And one of the strategies that we've talked about that we would prefer to consider at this point is to change the deadline for when builders call up and request an inspection. Right now, our deadline is at 8 a.m. in the morning. If you call by that time, we will get out there that day and give you, provide you an inspection. What we would like to consider doing is moving that up to 4 p.m. the previous day, so that if you call by 4 p.m., we'll get out there and inspect your project the next day. And what that will do is just be able to help us to monitor the night before the number of inspections that we might receive in a given day. And if there is a day when it's just beyond our ability to provide those inspections from our in-house inspector, then we can call on the company that we contract with and ask them to help us with inspections as needed. I don't expect that to become a norm necessarily, but this practice will be able to help us to be prepared for those days when it's particularly high. You'll notice in my report, we had one day in January that was over 100 inspections and a few days that were over 80. So some of those days to get to be pretty heavy for just one inspector. And so this adjustment would allow us to call in reinforcements as needed.
And I agree, because I feel like if they call by 4 o'clock the previous day, you can actually lay the next day out and plan your day easier than you can if people are calling before 8 o'clock in the morning trying to, you know, I mean, that would be a lot of calls. Well, I guess it would be people who called the day before, but up until 8 in the morning, the current day. Right.
That's correct. And I also wanted to mention, I'm primarily presenting this tonight as some information and just to hear back if there's any committee concerns. This is not something that we need city council approval to do, but I wanted to make sure that I included you all just to know what we're thinking of doing.
All right, thank you. Any concerns?
No concerns, Madam Chair. I mean, I think that this is an administrative departmental decision. And if this helps the department better serve the people that we're trying to serve, by all means, go ahead and do it. I know that, you know, if I have a situation where I need a contractor to come to my house, whether it's cable repair, power situation, phone situation, appliance repair, you know, if I call the day before and expect somebody to be there the next day, I'm going to be twiddling my thumbs for a long time, because I'm going to be told we can't get to you until Tuesday of next week, you know, between noon and 6. So, you know, to still be able to call at 4 o'clock the day before and get something scheduled for the next day, it still puts service at a premium for this department. And I'd say, Mr. Deerhog, go for it.
Thank you. And this will help us to still stay ahead of a lot of other agencies in the area. We know more and more are going to, just like you mentioned, Mr. Matney, of scheduling those out further down the road. So we will still be, our service will still be ahead of a lot of our neighbors.
Well, it's great that we're getting a lot of these because that means more building permits. Mr. Bryant, do you have anything?
I have no problem with staff because they're the ones that run the day-to-day operations, so they should be the ones that know better than committee as to what they need to serve the public. So I think it's up to David and his staff to do what they think is best to provide the service to the people for his inspections. And when they get out there in a timely manner to provide the service to the people.
I agree. Thank you. Okay, so the next item is allowed uses and building design in C2 zoning district. Mr. Deerhawk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Something that I am preparing to actually bring up to the Planning Commission, and before I do so, just wanted to see if there was any input from the committee. But as the city has been talking over the years about its vision for the city, particularly the city center and along Main Street and also along Butler Road, it's become clear that some of our zoning does not quite match that vision. And a lot of our area along Main Street and Butler Road is zone C2. And we wanted to go ahead and I wanted to go ahead and start working with the Planning Commission to take a look at that and see what kind of adjustments we ought to consider making to the C2 so that it better fits the vision that we have for those areas of the city. One of the things I want to start out looking with them at is just the different list of uses that we allow in the C2 district. And there are, in my opinion, clearly some that probably aren't what we are wanting to see to continue to grow and expand in the city as we try to move the city into the future and to bring up the level of standard for new development. So I wanted to start out and take a look at some of that, things like used car sales, renting automobiles, standalone parking lots, boat sales, some of those types of things that may not necessarily be the best fit along Main Street, and reconfigure that so that we identify the areas where that is appropriate and preserve our areas along Main Street and Butler for the things that we want to see there in line with our vision. And as part of that, also taking a look at some of the design standards there to make sure that we're raising the bar with that. So again, this is intended to go to the Planning Commission later this month, but I did want to give you a little preview right now and see if there was any input that the committee had as I prepare to take this to the Planning Commission.
Well, I agree with you, and I think that now is the time to plan for the future, because we want to put the cart before the horse, and so I think that's great. Mr. Matney?
Couple of things, Mr. Deerhog. Number one, in reviewing this with the Planning Commission, you may want to take a look at some of the descriptions as well. I'm not exactly sure when the ordinance was first passed, but there are some terms that may be considered outdated and not really fit with what we have going on now.
Figure salon?
Yeah, ding ding. Yeah, that was one. Still not quite sure what that even is.
I think it is some sort of gym.
And the other thing is, this may not even go far enough. I know that there was a proposed ordinance several years ago that was tabled that we were going to re-examine in 6 months. And I think with some tweaking, that one could have worked. The biggest problem with that one, if you recall, was that there was an immediacy to it. And we have to understand that this is going to be a transitional process, that it's not going to be something that happens overnight. And we had a lot of business owners along Main Street who were concerned that they wouldn't be able to sell their businesses as is. They wouldn't be able to pass their businesses on to family members. in estate situations. And I think we need to allow for those things to continue to occur, that, you know, the non-conforming use could continue to a point up until the use of the property changes. And once that property's use changes, it couldn't revert to the non-conforming use. I know that there are some other things that we want to take a look at in here, but I think that that component may want to be considered as you and the planning commission work through that. Because I think that it would certainly ease concerns of some of the business owners who might otherwise be affected, and make it easier for us to consider as a council. Those would be my thoughts, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Well, I did talk to David a little bit about maybe limiting it, if we allow like used car lots along Main Street, for instance, what is there now, can we limit how many come in, so that, you know, we don't have the motor mile, or if that one goes out, such as World Auto, that one doesn't come back in, that kind of thing, that the use can change, which it is, I believe. I believe someone bought that property and it won't be a car lot. So, you know, things that he can talk to the planning commission about as well. Mr. Black, do you have anything?
No, I just agree with Mr. Matney. We discussed this several years ago, and if we change this, we need to make sure that those that are in business now, and if this is changed, that they are in the non-conforming business or location or whatever you want to say, that they can still operate until said time that they sell, close, or whatever, and then the business changes. Because we went through this several years ago when there was some confusion about this, and we don't want to penalize anybody that has a legalized operational business now, and because we changed the zoning, that they're not conforming now, so they would have to change. So I think we need to make sure, and like Mr. Matney said, times have changed, things have changed, and we need to look at it and make sure that we're conforming with what most of the people would like to see nowadays.
All right, anything else?
Those are my comments.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Gerhog?
No, Madam Chair, and I sure do appreciate the comments and the input from the committee members. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next is public comment. Is there any public comment?
Anybody online?
All right, hearing none, committee
I
concern.
think we
Oh,
want
I'm
to check
sorry.
and see if there's somebody online.
Okay, all right, committee concerns. All right, hearing none. What do I hear on adjournment?
Move adjourn.
Do I hear a second? All right, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, ayes have it. Up next is Recreation Committee meeting. It is 8:30 p.m.
Thank you. I'd like to call the Recreation Committee meeting for February the 1st, 2021. Shows 2020 on here. 2021, I think, is what the correct date is. It's approximately 8:33 p.m. All are present was Mr. Matney, Mr. Michael Reynolds, Dale Black is remotely. We got Mr. Brandon Madden, and we got Mr. Bart Kumalander, which is dialed in. I hope he's dialed in. I see his picture up here. So we'd like to call the meeting to order. Any public comments at this time? If not, we'll come back at a later time, give you another opportunity. Brandon, any public comments?
We do not have any public comment.
All right, thank you, Mr. Madden. All right, what I hear on the reading and approval of the minutes of the Recreation Committee meeting of January the 4th, 2021.
Move approval.
Got a motion, Mr. Matney, that we move for approval. Have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Reynolds. Any additions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Next item is report and communication of city officers, recreation director, Mr. Kumalander. You're on the spot, Mr. Kumalander.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Just a couple things. Budget's in pretty good shape. There's two things I'll point out to y'all. One would be the senior center. We had to buy an air unit back in a couple months ago, and also a furnace for the downstairs room. So that kind of took a lot of our budget. Also, I'll point out we had to get some defibrillators at the sports center. Currently, we had one, and the fire department came by and did an inspection, and the batteries were obsolete on the current defibrillator that we have. So we have ordered 3, and they are in. So we're going to locate those 3 defibrillators. One will be in the gym, one will be on the sports center floor, and also another one will be in the exercise room where they do all their classes and stuff. The fire department felt like that we needed to have more spread out in case we needed them closer, so you wouldn't have to run all over the place to find one. So those are currently, they're in, they just are waiting to be installed. So just pointing that out, that was not a budgeted item, but we felt like that was an emergency purchase. And those defibrillators came in under $5,000. So Brandon signed off on it, and it was all good. So just pointing that out to y'all. Also, I want to thank our staff, our rec staff, our sports center staff, and our senior staff. More importantly, our rec and sports center staff, they are taking everybody's temperature that walks in the door, making sure they have a mask. And then when those folks are leaving after the first game, we're sanitizing that whole gym. So it's a lot of moving pieces, but I just want to publicly thank them because it couldn't be done. Andre, Willie, and the rest of the sports center staff really are doing a good job, and the senior staff as well. Talk a little bit about spring signups for our rec sports. We're going to push those out to mid-February. They're slowly coming in, but we're pushing those signups out till mid-February. Some of the big projects that we've got going on, just to keep y'all updated on the parking lot at City. I was on the phone with Patty Akis about the parking lot. They are a little bit behind just because of the rain, and I'm pushing them as hard as I can. Let's let them know that we are starting our spring sports end of February. So they've got us on their docket. Just as soon as this rain will stop, they'll catch back up. So just wanted to point to couple of those things out to y'all. I think Matthew went over, the trees are down up there, so we're ready to go. It's just waiting on them. Just keeping you updated on that. That's all I have, Mr. Black.
Thank you, Mr. Kumalander. Committee have any questions, Mr. Kumalander?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kumalander, there is a new head coach of the boys lacrosse team over at the high school, and he has expressed interest in setting up a meeting with you to really begin establishing a relationship with the Rex lacrosse program and the high school. So if you and I want to talk about that offline, I'm more than happy to help facilitate that.
Yes, sir. We'll get together. No problem. We'll do that. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Anything
Chairman.
else? Mr. Reynolds, you have anything?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kumlander actually touched on exactly what I was going to say, is just what a fantastic job Andre and Willie have done with the basketball program specifically, just watching them facilitate. They've worked very hard to try to keep everybody as safe as possible. And as members of that, we've appreciated it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Madden, you have anything to add?
I do not, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on right along, we go to unfinished business. There's no unfinished business at this time. New business, Sports Center marketing plan. This is on page 6 through 13 of your handout. Bart, you want to take this and run with it?
Yes, sir, Mr. Black. We really never had a marketing plan in place, and so we're just trying to boost our memberships up a little bit as well. So we just came up with a plan, me and the staff, and actually Brandon helped out a lot with this. And so we're just trying to put something out in front of y'all so we kind of tell you what we're trying to do and implement in the next couple months to push some of our programs there at the facility. But that's all I have.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank you and your staff for taking this initiative to try to build the sports center activity and membership up, because this has been some questions every year in the budget process that some of our citizens ask as to why we are having to subsidize so much money. So I think this will be a good thing to build the revenue up for this program and this activities. I just want to thank you and your staff for doing this.
Yes, sir. And so kind of elaborate on what we're trying to do is just if we go out, I'm going out this week with trying with Mr. Van Broad to hit some of these places. He's got some folks going to be lined up with us this week. And I've been talking to some folks too that I'm going to tour the facility. So, just trying to get in front of it and push that facility. A lot of people ride by that facility and they don't even know what it is. So we're just going to do a better job of letting them know what we have to offer and what that building's about. So.
Well, there again, I commend you and your staff and Amanda and everybody else involved in what they're doing to promote this for the city and the city residents and even the residents outside the city limits. Does anybody else on committee have anything to add to this comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My only thought would be that the only dollar figure in here that's mentioned is the $7,500, but that's something that will be requested in the upcoming fiscal year budget. And with that being the case, I think that we all would agree that in concept, this is a good roadmap for the department to use. But again, I would see this as an internal and administrative decision. And Mr. Cumberlander and his staff have done an excellent job in putting it together. And with the dollar figure just being a part of the budget request for the coming fiscal year, I say roll with it.
Thank you, Mr. Mandy. I have no problem. I think this will be well worth the money spent because a lot, like I say, Mr. Cumberlander said, a lot of people do not realize what a gym we have up there with the sports center and everything we have to offer. Mr. Reynolds, you have anything to add?
No, sir. Mr. Matney touched it perfectly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, well, next item, we'll move on to the next item in new business is the egg drop, which is on page 14 of your handout. So, Bart, you want to take this? I think I've discussed this with you, and you know my feelings, and I think I've discussed it with several other members. So, go ahead and take it, Bart.
Yes, sir. As you know, this egg drop was actually dear to me. We started a couple years ago. Over the years, it just escalated, which is a good thing. It got bigger and bigger. But I feel like at this point with COVID and just the crowd control, I just feel like that it's, I just don't know if the staff could control that end of it as well. And so, I've been kind of looking around at other cities. I think Spartanburg has canceled their spring fling. I don't want to say, hey, let's cancel it for forever, but I think this year we pump the brakes and we have some eggs left over. And I have met with the staff and we're in agreement that, hey, let's maybe donate those eggs to the local churches for their little Easter event, if they have one, but just offer that as well for them. We've had those eggs for 2 years now, so I'd like to do something with them. So I'm just bringing before council and y'all's thoughts on moving forward, just pumping the brakes this year and postponing it and revisiting it next year. That's what I'd like to do.
Personally, my thoughts on it with the uncertainty of the COVID and everything going on and what we had to do with it last year, I would, like I said, when I talked to you earlier, I have to think that we need to take the eggs that we already have with the coupons and the prizes and everything in them and give them to the various churches inside the city. Then if there's need outside the city for the churches, then we can cover those also to make sure that the children still get the benefit from the eggs. But the uncertainty, I don't think we need the city to be involved at this time with all the uncertainty in it. That's just my thoughts. Well, I'll turn it over to the rest of the committee. Mr. Madden, Mr. Reynolds, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I like the idea of trying to do something different. I don't know if, I think I'd probably tend to see if you can partner with any of the schools within the city as well. Is there any programs there we can work with them and distribute them that way as well? Yeah, I struggle because I want to see some normalcy, but this is a big event, and it's a big event because it's popular, and it's popular, so there's a lot of people. So that's certainly going to be a struggle for the staff to maintain. So I understand the decision to consider an accident for this year, and I'd be in support of that, but I would like to try to do something with all of those eggs.
I would also support the postponement for 2021. We're just not at the point where we can responsibly make the decision to have it this year. And I hate it for the families and the young people who count that as a part of their spring. But we would be irresponsible to invite everybody out. I think that the churches, maybe some of the preschools would be good outlets for distributing the eggs. But I know that in terms of the schools, at least the public schools, Greenville County Schools has been very tight on allowing interaction with students from the outside community. And I think that it would be difficult to get into, whether it was Mauldin Elementary or Bethel, with the eggs, with the lockdown that the district currently has. But with the churches, with the preschools, I think that there's certainly an opportunity to bring some smiles to faces.
Thank the rest of the committee. And I also believe that with the correlation with the fire department, we could do something with the eggs with all their contacts and everything also to still serve the children for the Easter egg hunt that we used to have, because of the COVID. So I would commend the staff and Mr. Madden and all that for working to see what we can do with the eggs and still make an event for the kids, even though I'm not in favor of having it this time. I mean, not saying stop it, but just at this time. So I don't think this needs to go to Mr. Madden, does this need to go to full council, or is this a committee thing or staff recommendation?
It does not, Mr. Black. This is staff is recommending it, but really we want to get feedback from the committee.
Okay. I would be in favor of letting the staff and the recreation committee and their staff make the decision on this and see what they're going to do with the egg drop, because we already have the eggs and everything in place. So I don't think council needs to say, yeah, we're going to do it, or yeah, we're not going to do it. So that's my opinion. Anybody else have anything on this? All righty, we don't have anything else on new business, public comments. We got any public comments?
You have the mayor.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Black. I applaud the committee and the recreation for being proactive and looking at this year's egg drop needs to be canceled because of the uncertainty in the virus, as well as the vaccines that may or may not be available. So I see that. I'll just remind them that, of course, I like Bart. I've been involved in this thing since day one. So it's near and dear, and I hate to see it not happen, but this year is the most prudent thing to do. But also remember, all these years in the past, it's been the churches and their associated schools and daycares and other organizations that have donated these eggs. So I definitely feel if we're going to have to get rid of them, some of them we've had for 2 years now, that would be a good opportunity to reach back out to some of them. And they've got that list over there to say, here's the eggs, if you want to use them for your little small egg drop, or not egg drop, egg hunt and things like that that the churches may do. I do think Mr. Matney's dead on as far as schools right now, public schools. They don't want to see an influx of merchandise that they haven't had an opportunity to sanitize. And I'm afraid of what happened to these eggshells if you sprayed them with the cleaners. So just my thoughts. Thank you, Mr. Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other public comments at this time?
There's no one online, Mr. Black.
Committee concerns, I have the committee concerns. I hear none. What I hear on adjournment.
So move.
Got a motion made to adjourn, a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Appreciate everyone's attendance, and we'll vote for adjourn. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Madden, Mr. Kumalander.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, the next committee meeting is finance and policy.
All right. I'm gonna go ahead and call this Monday, February 1st, Finance and Policy Committee to order. The time is 8:51. This is the last meeting for the night. Members present are myself, Michael Reynolds, Miss Carol King, and Miss Diane Kuznar, as well as virtually, we have Miss Holly Abercrombie and Mr. Mark Putnam, and our city administrator, Mr. Brandon Madden, present as well. First order is call to order. Second is public comment. Hearing none. Any online? We have no one online, it looks like. Thank you, Mr. Madden. Hearing now, our next item is reading and approval of minutes. This is for the January 4th, 2021 committee meeting.
I'll make a motion to,
Excuse me.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'll try to get in.
No, I was gonna say, and before we say that, Miss King was not available for this meeting, either virtually or in present, so this will be something for you, Ms. Kuznar.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted for January 4th, 2021.
Thank you, Ms. Kuznar. I have a motion and I will second that. We have discussion. Any changes you said as submitted? Very good. All those in favor of approving the minutes for January 4th, 2021?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Carries 2-0 with no Ms. King. Next item is a budget review from Mr. Madden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Currently, the administration budget is sitting where it should be for this time of the year, considering we have less than 6 months left in this fiscal year. So we're right on par.
Perfect. Any other items?
No, not at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Madden. Our next one is Ms. Abercrombie for the budget review and totality for the city.
Yes, as you heard from all the department heads, all their budgets look to be in line. Property taxes, the bulk of them have finally kind of trailed off now. We'll be just to the norm of basically some delinquent and then vehicle tax for the remaining of the months, and that looks in line with about where it was last year. The next big revenue that we will look for is business license in April. And hopefully it stays strong and looks good as well. And then the only other thing is we're working on the fiscal year 22 budget, and those will be due in the next, I think it's the end of next week is the deadline for them to have them all backed up, me, and then we'll start putting it together and getting y'all some budget books. That's all I have.
With tabs.
With tabs?
Yeah, that's her little.
No tabs.
Hey,
Sorry.
I'll send you directions to Staples.
Well, we appreciated y'all's hard work last year. It certainly made the budget process easier than other budgets that I've been a part of, and under all that a lot of that legwork is done before it comes to council, and we appreciate all that you guys do. Glad to hear property taxes are coming in a little stronger now, and we look forward to a budget. Feels like we're just finishing the other one up, but it's time for another.
I know.
Mr. Putnam, did you have anything to add?
I just wanted to add our reinvestment of the savings that we had or we had realized in the insurance this last year, and this committee really starting the process to reinvest some of that money into lowering for a one-time period to lower the premiums for the employee and spouse, employee and children, and family is really going a long ways with the employees. I've seen and heard a lot of very positive comments on that. And I just wanted to let y'all know that what we've done and what you guys have put in place is really, as far as morale with that group of employees, has really boosted their morale a lot. So I want to thank y'all for what you did there.
Mr. Putnam, thank you for bringing that comment to council. That certainly is encouraging for us, as the decisions are not always easy, and it's encouraging to hear feedback and positive feedback as well. Any questions from the rest of the committee? Okay, moving on. Thank you, Mr. Putnam.
Yes.
This is an item, the unfinished business is the amendment to the committee rules. It's been on for a couple of times now. I know we funded this till this meeting as Ms. King was absent, and we want to make sure you had input on this.
Thank you. I read that in the minutes. Prior to tonight.
Prior to tonight. You couldn't even join virtually, so we knew you were in a number then.
I thought I'd tell people, y'all know I don't let grass grow under my feet. So if I was not able to join virtually, you know it was bad. But thank you for the phone calls and the texts that everyone sent checking in on me. Glad to be feeling better.
We're glad to have you back. So this really started from a couple of different things. It really started from trying to move these meetings downstairs, committee meetings, to the main chambers, since we did all of the upgrades down there to better equip for Zoom meetings and stuff like that. But as we did it, when we sent it to committee, I don't think there was any issue sending it from committee to council. But as we were there, the more I thought about it, it probably made some sense if there were any other adjustments that we may have. It'd be a good time to do it all at once rather than piecemealing it. So we had a couple of other suggestions for our long meetings. Mr. Madden and I had talked about having an extra night for each month. That would be a scheduled meeting for all executive sessions. That was one idea we floated to help with having meetings go so late, although this night we're doing actually pretty well. So that was one idea. The mayor sent a couple of items that he wanted to consider as well. So with that said, thoughts on what we have, and then any other thoughts that you may have in regards to this item.
Well, so when I came in this evening, I think there may have been something going on in the courtroom. Do you know if there was? I know that the police were still there milling around, and
They were just probably checking for people to come up because they had to like security check folks before they come upstairs. So that might have been what they were doing.
I had the lights on, they had it open in downstairs, and I told the young guy, said everybody's upstairs, he didn't actually do that.
all right, so I didn't even look in, thank you. And so I was thinking, oh, there's something going on in there. So if we had wanted the meeting in there, I don't know.
I think if there was a double schedule, I know a guy who could take care of that for us.
Yeah, I think we could trust that.
Ms. King, what are your thoughts?
Well, I haven't, I'm never really shy, but I haven't been shy on this topic either. You know, my thing's been all along, not always since I've been on council, but in the recent past, with us having the upgrades to council chambers and the video audio system. And most importantly, I think security. is a big reason to have our meetings as needed, be in the preferable place in council chambers. And as it's been alluded to, we could always have the standing committee rules say that, unless the committee chair requests otherwise, so if we're only having one meeting, it could be requested to have it upstairs. I know it's not the quaint personal touch that this gives us, but we're in a room with all glass windows. We've experienced protesting in the recent past, and I just think it's easier for our police department to secure the building when we're in council chambers and secure the folks coming in versus upstairs in a corner conference room. And again, we have updated audio visual, and I think we can make efforts to make it to where it's not intimidating for folks to come up. Perhaps they could just speak like we do here from their seat. They don't have to come up to the podium. So we could still keep it at that informal type meeting, but have it in a more secure, professional area.
Okay. So location is important. Yes, Ms. Kuzma?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Any thoughts then to looking at changing to, and this is just suggestions, so don't, but looking at breaking up our meetings so that we have an executive session like EPD had an executive session today that obviously took the bulk of what the meetings were today. Would it make some sense for us to address having nights where we can be more flexible and not have 11 o'clock Monday nights? Do we go ahead and have EPD or executive session scheduled for other nights, or is that something that makes any sense to you guys?
I would say it depends on what the agendas are. So for tonight, for example, there wasn't a whole lot on the agendas for the other committees. And so we're not going to run real late. So I think that it's going to depend for me on what the executive session entails. If it's going to be a long executive session, maybe we do split it. Or if there's several committees that have executive sessions, we split it, just so that we're not here late.
Any thoughts, Ms. Key?
Kind of mixed emotions. I mean, it's not fun being here till 11:30 at night, but at the same time, it all gets done in one place at one time. But I wouldn't be opposed. I agree with Ms. Kusnar with letting staff perhaps be the judge along with the mayor as he reviews the agenda before we see it. If it's going to be a night to where you have 3 committees with executive sessions, perhaps those 3 committees meet and the other 3 meet on the following night, or vice versa.
Right.
So I know in the recent past, when we were here till 11:30, I think we had 3 different committees that all had executive sessions. So that would be an example where those committees can meet on one night and then the other 3 can meet the following night. I think staff could kind of judge and know how much time it's going to take. It's not our first rodeo.
Yep.
And kind of gauge council to see if that would be something to consider. But I think it's something that could be an option, but I don't think it's something we want to say we have an executive session, let's do it on 2 nights.
So don't break it down a totally separate night. Just have the option that the committees are broken up Monday or Tuesday as needed.
Yeah, Monday and or Tuesday. Then you could do an and or.
Okay.
Under number 2 to cover that.
So based on
And that would also cover never mind. I was going to say if we had, but that's council meetings that we typically have to change to Tuesday because of holidays. We wouldn't have a holiday on the first Monday. Unless it's the 4th of July or something.
Okay, so based on that, we would need a motion to amend our rules, our standing committee rules, to allow Chambers Committee Chair to request that the meeting be held in council chambers, or did we want to, and that was the other thing we talked about, is giving some flexibility if the committee chair wasn't comfortable in chambers, giving them the option to bring the meeting up here or other locations. Do we want to change the wording to allow that, or say in chambers and there has to be special called outside of that?
Well, I think it would be kind of odd if we're having 6 committee meetings and one committee wants to come up here and then the people who are sitting in the audience come, I don't know. I would just think that we should have it one place or the other, and then that way, let's just say that the first committee wants to meet up here, but the public is used to meeting in the council chambers now, and just the confusion of,
Yeah.
to me, I'd just rather do it all in one place.
What if you strike the council chambers and just have Mauldin City Hall? And that would give us the flexibility.
That would work with me, Mr. Madden. Okay. All right, so strike in council chambers. Are you gonna you're gonna make the motion?
To be monthly at Mauldin City Hall unless the committee chair requests that the meeting be held at a different location.
I think making
Where
sure.
else would we have it if we didn't have it at City Hall?
We've had meetings off-site before.
I do hope the intent of the chairs is to move to chambers and.
Once that I can think of since I've been on council, there's been one off-site.
Okay.
And I had a second request from another member, which I like the wording as well. Under number 2, to consider adding committee meetings will be scheduled for the first Monday and or Tuesday of each month based upon anticipated volume of business items to be considered and or the length of meetings for all standing committees. Those are not my words, but I do like his words.
Well said. That sounds almost matinee-esque.
It's not
No, I was
matinee-esque.
just kidding. Okay, any thoughts on that? All right, so we would need a formal motion striking the City Hall and the council chambers, as well as adding that.
All right, I'll make that motion to amend. Let me get back to the original. Hold on. If I have the verbiage here. To amend the standing committee rules under operation number 1 to strike the council chambers for the red line change that was presented to committee. Therefore, reading Mauldin City Hall unless the committee chair requests that the meeting be held at a different location. And under 2, to amend that section to read, committee meetings will be scheduled for the first Monday and or Tuesday of each month, beginning at 6 p.m. I can email this to Mr. Madden, of each month based upon anticipated volume of business items to be considered and or length of meetings for all standing committees. And that verbiage can be changed up a little bit as needed, just to say the same thing.
I'm not going to repeat that back. So I have a motion to change those 2 items for the standing committee rules. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion on this item? We'll finally kick this thing out of committee. Okay.
Again, I appreciate y'all holding this in committee and let me have some input on it, as these are obviously important rules that we follow.
Absolutely. It keeps us all in check and we appreciate them. Okay, I have a motion and a second. No more discussion. All those in favor of the mentioned changes?
Aye.
Aye. There are no opposed. It carries unanimous. Next item on our agenda is new business, and there is no new business. So we have another spot for public comment. Do we have any public comment? Ooh, and the mayor is quiet. I don't see anybody waving on there. We're gonna call this a successful, this is a successful meeting. All those in favor of adjournment? Committee concerns for the Finance and Policy Committee. Okay, so we have budgets coming up, big busy times. So just appreciate all that you guys are doing. Pleasure to serve with you. What do I hear on adjournment?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second for adjournment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We stand adjourned for 9/11, February 1st, and that is the last committee meeting of the night.